I fall in love easily, but after 3 straight girlfriends dumped me out of seemingly nowhere, I decided that I was going to be a player. But the only thing is, I'm shitty at being a player. Like one time I actually said to a friend, like, a player's just gotta play. Real players don't say that. People from the hit 90s movie Booty Call say that. I care about people too much to be a player, though. So instead of doing awkward one-night stands, I started doing these things my therapist called relationship vignettes. Because I travel all over the country as a comedian, I would meet these girls in a different city, and then I would pour all of my emotions into them for like 3 days, and I would make them my wife for the weekend. I met a girl in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and in the span of 3 days, I met her parents, saw her childhood home, got a tour of her former high school. I even went to the laundromat to do laundry with her. That's not a date, that's a marriage. To me, it was always safe, though, because I was returning to California, so nothing important or significant or meaningful could really happen. I could feel intimacy without the side effects of feeling intimacy. I was seeing my therapist a lot at that time. On the last night I was with her, she said, "Don't use a condom." As an intelligent person, I know that I should have said no. But in the seconds leading up to sex, there's really only one thought going through my head. Yahtzee! The next morning, I woke up with clearer thoughts and realized the error of my ways. I said, "Wow, that was really irresponsible of us last night, but at least you're on birth control." To which she responded, No, I'm not on birth control, but it's not a big deal. Having a French fry in your order of onion rings is not a big deal. Having a baby is the biggest deal. Like, I wanted to sit her down and explain, like, do you know how easy it is to make a baby? Like, last night we fulfilled all of the prerequisites. Like penis, check. Vagina, check. Sperm, check. No birth control, checkmate. 2 weeks later, she called me and told me she was pregnant. I know that I shouldn't have a kid at this point in my life. I know that because every morning for breakfast, I still eat Lucky Charms. And I get so upset when one of those goddamn oats pieces makes it into my last bite of entire marshmallows. Shouldn't have a kid. But I'm a decent human being, so about 5 minutes after she told me she was pregnant, I came to the conclusion that I needed to help her raise a child. When someone calls you and tells you they're pregnant, though, those thoughts aren't the first ones that jump into your head. Like, my first thought was honestly like, if I kill myself, she can't make me raise this child. My second thought was, she's got stairs at her apartment. Maybe I'll get lucky. My third thought was, I'm not sharing any of my goddamn Lucky Charms. I didn't know how to process the information at first, or how to tell anyone. I was raised in a very religious family of Christian Scientists. And for those that don't know, Christian Science is a religion where we don't take medicine, we don't go to the hospital, we don't see a doctor, we don't do any of that sort of stuff. As a Christian Scientist, if you get sick, you ignore it. If you lose a tooth, you ignore it. If you break your arm, you ignore it. If you get a girl pregnant, you ignore it? I don't know. I couldn't tell my mom. Like, she gets disappointed in me when I take an Advil. Imagine if I told her I didn't pull out quick enough because doggy style is my favorite position. Christian Scientists don't do doggy style without a condom. They ignore it, all right? Growing up, I went to Christian Science Elementary School, and I developed a case of asthma as a young child. My mom is a worrier, so even though she hates medicine, she got me an inhaler, but told me I wasn't allowed to tell anyone because she didn't want people to know that we were cheating. At school, when I had breathing problems, I would slip into the bathroom, go into a stall, and stand on the toilet so no one could see my shoes, and then take shots of my inhaler. Some kids hide in the bathroom to do drugs and feel alive. I hid in the bathroom to literally stay alive. I became conditioned to fear judgment from other Christian Scientists, even my family. The Christian Science summer camp I went to every summer was located in the wilderness of the Rocky Mountains. One day, while all the kids were eating food in the cafeteria, a giant grizzly bear came wandering into the middle of the camp, and everyone freaked out. Like, some kids were like putting war paint on their faces with like the soot from the fireplaces to go on bear hunts. Like, other kids were like making booby traps for their cabins. I was doing shots of my inhaler in the bathroom. That night, during the middle of the night, I had an asthma attack. I couldn't wake the counselor because he might judge me. So instead of seeking help, I went into the middle of the woods by myself and sat there until I could breathe. I was more willing to face a bear than a group of angry Christian Scientists. 13 years later, a girl called me and told me she was pregnant. I didn't tell my family because I still couldn't face a group of angry Christian Scientists. I felt so guilty. I didn't jerk off for a month after getting the news because I was so angry at my own seed. Couldn't do it. All I could think was like, you guys stay locked up in there and you think about what you've done. The first time I tried to jerk off after getting the news was the only time in my life that I've ever stopped in the middle and didn't finish. Because watching two people have sex on internet porn, all I could think was like, these two people aren't thinking about the consequences of their actions. A few minutes after this girl told me she was pregnant, I suggested that I fly out to Grand Rapids to talk with her in person so we could get all the information on our sides. I wanted to talk to a priest, a doctor, Planned Parenthood, a single mom, her parents, the kid that works at Taco Bell, everybody. She said, no, I don't want you to fly out here just for a couple of days because I'm hoping you fall in love with me and I know that might not happen. Oh, I picked the wrong girl to marry for 3 days. She didn't want me to fly out there to talk, but she did want me to move there permanently. Over the next weeks, our conversations kept coming back to the question, when are you moving here? When are you moving here? When are you moving here? Finally, I broke down and said, like, look, I'm never going to move there. I can't give up on my whole life for somebody I've spent all of 3 days with. And that's when she cut me off. She wouldn't answer my phone calls, my emails, but more importantly, she blocked me on Facebook. That's when I knew shit was real. I only got a response once to a text message, and the response just said, fuck you. It took all of my strength not to reply like, no, you did that already, that's why you're mad at me. Finally, after 6 weeks of complete radio silence, I got a text message from her on a random Wednesday night at about 10 p.m. The text read, I hate you more than anything in the world and I think you're a total piece of shit, but I wish you could come over to my house and have sex with me tonight. That was the first time in this whole ordeal that I finally realized, like, oh, she's crazy. Like, the unprotected sex is no big deal didn't convince me. The you'll fall in love with me when you see me again didn't convince me, but I was finally convinced of her instability when she wanted to hate fuck me. 3 days later, she sent me another text that said, I miss talking to you. First of all, we never talked. I hung out with her for 3 days, she yelled at me for a week, and then I didn't hear anything from her for 2 months. Like, forgive me if I don't think a valid response to my baby mama is like, I miss chatting too. So I did what any person in my situation would do. I wrote back, I miss chatting too. I would love to talk sometime. I still have no idea what you've decided to do. She wrote back, you made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with this, so I'm going to keep it that way. I'm never going to tell you what I've decided to do. And true to her word, that's the last I've ever heard from her. And still I said nothing to my family. I spent 6 months wondering if I was going to be a dad, dreading the day 20 years down the line when I was going to be called onto the set of Maury to take a paternity test. I was depressed. The most depressing thought I had during that whole time, the one that made me feel the most ashamed, was I was like, when I'm 50 years old, I could never hit on a 25-year-old girl because there's literally a chance she's my daughter. I knew another comedian that was friends with this girl, though. There's a term for girls like that in the comedy business, a chuckle fucker. I tracked that other comedian down and asked him to do me a favor and let me know if that girl was pregnant. He talked to some of her friends and family, stalked her on Facebook, and found out that she had never been pregnant in the first place. She was desperate for her family, and naturally, as the pillar of financial success, I made the perfect target. Really, a comedian? Like, did she honestly have the thought of, like, do I lie to a rich banker or go after the guy that cries when he has a bad show? The The pregnancy scare was probably the toughest 6 months of my life, but I'm actually glad it happened. It got me to stop trying to be the pseudo-player that I never really wanted to be in the first place. For the first time in years, I opened myself to dating someone for real that lived in the same city as me, to risk real intimacy. I finally told my family about the whole thing. I finally told my family about the whole thing, and they all just hugged me without judgment in their eyes. Though the kid never actually existed, sometimes I wish I could meet him because I think he saved me from myself and Maury.